All right, from today on, we're counting on you to take care of all 7 of us. Opening the door, there stood Jack, my son, whom I hadn't seen for several months. Behind him were Lisa, his wife, and their children, all standing there holding large bags. Even though I hadn't heard anything about this, for him to suddenly show up with so many people seemed outrageous, even if it is their family home. Jack seemed unfazed by my protests, brushing me off with a casual yay as he barged in, which was nothing short of terrifying. Why had Jack come back? A few months ago, after I criticized Jack and Lisa for their reckless spending, Jack called me a greedy old hag and cut ties with me. Jack, who is much stronger than me, easily pushed open the door and entered. Obviously, we don't have enough rooms for 7, right? So, here's the thing. My son stretched out his arms straight and firmly grabbed my shoulders. With a grin, he said to me as I grimaced in pain, "After you finish the cleaning and laundry, Mom, you can sleep in the hallway, Haga." My name is Mary, a 75-year-old woman living on a pension, just an ordinary lady. Before I got married, I used to work hard at a company. At first, I enjoyed my job, and perhaps because there are so many women in the workplace, I could understand why women did overtime. Back then, society expected that once a woman gets married, she should stay at home. However, my company said, "You've been working so hard, we'd like you to stay if possible." What do you think? It was a fulfilling job, but my husband wanted me to be a homemaker, and I decided to follow his wish upon getting married. I've always been passionate about cooking, putting extra effort into my usual dishes to make them taste professional. I've also admired the idea of spending more time cooking, adding that special touch. Becoming a homemaker allowed me more time for my sewing hobby, which secretly made me happy. I only had one child, Jack, but I believe the 3 of us, including my husband, had a happy life together. I was delighted when Jack was clingy during his early childhood and elementary years. Entering middle school, Jack hit his rebellious phase and put some emotional distance between us, but he was blessed with good friends. I've heard he still keeps in touch with a best friend he made in middle school. Whether it was the influence of his friends or his own ambition, he focused on his studies, considering college. My husband, despite his old-fashioned views, was supportive in raising our child, making the challenging task of parenting enjoyable. I was fortunate to have other mothers as friends too, especially during entrance exam periods, asking questions like, "How are you dealing with your child? What's the best advice to give? What support can make it easier for them to concentrate on their studies?" Since my son hadn't saved up for the wedding, I paid for most of the wedding expenses. My husband worked hard and made sure we had enough money for the house, so we led a comfortable life without financial worries. My hard-working husband passed away from illness 5 years ago. Now I live alone. My income comes from my pension and the savings my husband left behind. I use my sewing hobby to create items and sell the finished products on online flea market sites, earning a bit of income. I have enough money and am not struggling with life. So I've been leading a fulfilling life, volunteering with friends besides my hobby. Besides volunteering, I also enjoy going out for lunch and spending fun days with my friends around me. My son Jack is now 44 years old. He got married 17 years ago and has his own family. His wife, Lisa, is 40 years old. I remember her being quite reserved back when they were students. That image has been dispelled as we've come to know each other. My son Jack gave me 3 grandsons, with the eldest grandchild being 14 years old, followed by a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. My son and daughter-in-law never used to ask for much when the grandchildren were younger, and our relationship was good. I made sure not to repeat the unwelcome treatment I received from my mother-in-law, avoiding surprise visits and giving money for celebrations so they could buy whatever they liked. I thought we had managed to maintain a proper distance, but recently, the situation has changed drastically. My daughter-in-law has started asking for gifts for the grandchildren, or to go and dine out at slightly expensive restaurants almost every week. Even when we go out to eat, suggesting the outing themselves, they don't even pretend to reach for their wallets. Moreover, they always pick expensive restaurants every single time. But dining out was still the lesser issue. Because the grandchildren were with us, I was happy to see them enjoying the delicious food, smiling and looking happy. Gradually, Lisa started asking for expensive accessories that no middle schooler would typically wear. I've known Lisa since my son was in high school, so we go way back. When she was a student, Lisa was very quiet, the kind of kid who, for better or worse, didn't stand out. To think she would become so brazen, I can't help but sigh at my lack of judgment. She wasn't inherently rude, it's just that as soon as she deemed it okay to say anything to me, she became domineering. As we interacted as relatives, everyone started to see her true colors and gradually cut ties with her. Now, the only people she still interacts with are those with a strong enough character. Lisa, thinking I was easy to manipulate, started asking for rings, necklaces, branded wallets, and bags. As for me, I can't help but wonder, why does she need such expensive things? I've confronted you before, asking if these were just for your use, right? I asked Lisa. She insisted it was all for the kids. From clothes for elementary school entrance ceremonies to saying, I need this outfit for parent-teacher day. Only a designer bag will match it. But I'm not well off enough to buy designer bags for such reasons. Ignoring her moderately, she eventually stopped asking for more. Instead, she started targeting things that are hard to refuse. When I was cooking dinner, she'd barge in, saying, make some side dishes for me too. If I refused, she'd say, then I'll just take whatever's there, and help herself to the fridge, taking leftovers or the meat I just bought. Even if I strongly objected, she'd just laugh it off, saying, thank you so much, shake off my hand, and leave on her own accord. Lately, I've been astonished by what she's been doing. While it's common to hear about daughters-in-law getting bullied in mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, is it normal for me, the mother-in-law, to be the one distressed? To just drop by our house and announce an addendum and meals for the entire family? How audacious can you be? And yet she absolutely won't come for visits during the Memorial Day or graveyard visits. On New Year's, she begs for money for the grandchildren, devours the New Year's feast, and then leaves without visiting the graves or greeting other relatives. One summer, after being ignored no matter how many times I cautioned her, she said, it's the trend now to give money as a gift on New Year's and also for Memorial Day. I'm asking for all the kids. Not even a prayer at the family altar. No offerings, and on top of that, begging for money for all 3 grandchildren pushed me past my limit of anger. It was when I sternly confronted her for her intolerable behavior. Jack blatantly looked at me, sighed, and even clicked his tongue. Coming all this way to see a lonely old lady, and even giving you time with your grandkids, and that's how you talk? Fine then. I won't contact such an unreasonable granny ever again. Who's being unreasonable here? Fine by me. I won't contact you guys either. Don't ever come back. Without a glance my way, Lisa hurriedly left with the kids. Since then, the frequent calls ceased, and the sudden visits stopped. Afterward, I got busier with my hobby of sewing and volunteer work, continuing days without involving my son. Blessed with friends around me, I enjoyed busy days with regular lunches and a fun-filled life. Not contacting my son, I found myself passing peaceful and calm days. Happy days filled with my hobby of sewing, volunteering, and lunches with friends without reducing the frequency, living a life with just the right amount of stimulation. During my volunteer work, I often hear from people with disabilities, "Mary, thank you always," making me feel recognized and truly happy. I've always been quite sociable and blessed with many friends because of it. Getting calls from friends have become a part of my daily routine, with my cell phone constantly buzzing. Whenever I receive a text and hear the ping sound, I often think, another invite, as they're usually for something pleasant, which always brings a smile to my face. About 3 years after becoming estranged, the landline phone, which had been silent for so long, suddenly rang. It was my son on the other end. I had immediately blocked his number on my cell phone, but I never figured out how to do it on the landline. Considering how peacefully I'd been living without any contact from him, I wondered what could be the matter now. As I picked up the receiver, I heard my son's voice, "Hello, Mom." Then, over the phone, I faintly heard my daughter-in-law asking, "Did you get through to her?" It seemed like my son and his wife were both trying to contact me together. Jack didn't say he was fine or that it had been a long time. "Just need some money," he laughed without a hint of shame. As I was about to hang up, appalled, I heard Jack sighing through the phone. "Actually, I got laid off." "What?" My response must have been a mistake. Thinking I was listening, Jack started to rapidly spill everything. I actually fell ill for a bit and ended up making a series of mistakes during that time. Made a pretty big blunder and was told to take responsibility. So I was let go without even a farewell party. Dicey, that must have been tough. Keep your chin up. Honestly, I could only think, so what? Predicting my son's next words about losing his job and needing money was easy. As I tried to end the conversation abruptly and hang up, Jack's desperate voice kept me on the line. It seemed he didn't really expect me to lend him money. "If not money, then let's live together again. You can be happy living with your real son and your adorable grandchildren. We save on rent, it's a win-win, right? I'll call you back later. So please clean the house. Don't joke with me. There's no way I could be happy living with you guys. You were the one who said we should cut ties as family, and now you change your mind just because you're in trouble. That's shameless. You should be relying on Lisa, don't depend on me." Unable to stay silent at such selfish demands, I raised my voice for the first time in a long while. Then, from a distance, I heard my daughter-in-law's voice. "I'm already working full-time, yet, with 3 kids to support, we still can't make ends meet, so we're turning to you. You must have some love for your son and grandchildren, right? None. Living with you would only get me treated as a maid, and you'd just burn through my savings. I refuse to live together or give any financial support. Please, don't contact me again." I slammed down the receiver, only for the phone to ring insistently again. Annoyed by the endless ringing, I picked up the receiver between calls. Though it meant I couldn't receive other calls, anyone with real business would call my cell. Yet, the calls from my son and his wife didn't stop. Keeping the receiver off the hook or putting it back, they would call at the most unexpected times. Fed up with ignoring them, I reached out to a close friend. On a whim, I called a close friend who's a businessman on my cell phone. "Hello, I need to know how to block calls on my landline." 3 months passed, and peace was restored. Having nearly finished organizing the house, I was making a drawstring bag with my sewing skills. It was unusual to hear the doorbell without an appointment, so I checked the monitor showing the entrance. To my surprise, my son and his wife's faces were there, smiling. All I felt was a bad premonition. Allowing my son and his family inside would only lead to more disruption. Thinking of turning my son and his wife away, I said, "I'm busy right now, please leave." However, my son pleaded, "Don't say that. We've come all this way. There's something important we need to talk about," as he gestured towards the back. Not only my son and his family but also Lisa's parents had come. My son and his wife, their 3 children, along with Lisa's parents, 7 people in total, had shown up on my doorstep. What's more, each one had a carry-on, bringing significant luggage with them. While I might have managed to send away just my son and his wife, turning away Lisa's parents as well felt too heartless. The thought of causing a scene at the front door with guests carrying large luggage, especially under the watchful eyes of the neighbors, made me hesitant. Reluctantly, I decided to let them into the entrance, despite not wanting them in the house. I showed my son and his wife along with Lisa's parents to the parlor, and let the 3 grandchildren play upstairs. I could hear the children's excited voices exclaiming, "This room is so big," as they played. Right off the bat, my son said, "Mom, let's live together. We've brought our belongings, as you can see." I instinctively responded, "Living together is out of the question. Please, take your things and go back." But such a refusal wasn't going to deter my son so easily. "Mom, we're trying to do a good deed here, living together for your sake. We thought it'd give you a purpose, taking care of the grandkids in your golden years. That's being filial, right?" he said with a condescending tone. With a sigh of exasperation, I said, "Look, as you know, I'm 75 years old. It's unrealistic for someone of my age to look after the grandchildren." I was disillusioned that my previous refusals over the phone seemed to have been ignored. The last thing I wanted was to be a burden on my self-centered son. Mother-in-law, Jack is right. Living together would make things easier for you. Seeing your grandchildren every day would make you happy, Lisa insisted. The thought of how much money I'd be drained of, and how much effort I'd have to put in if I ended up living with my son's family sent shivers down my spine. Lisa even said, "Listen, have you thought about how old you are, with limited time left? Living together means you can dote on your adorable grandchildren." I've barely spoken or seen Lisa's parents since the wedding introduction. Lisa's parents are clearly devoted to her, having spoiled their only daughter thoroughly. Likely, Lisa was also raised indulged in her parents' distorted affection. Then, Lisa's parents added, "Hey, Mary, we're both getting on in years. Let's cooperate with our daughter here." Typical of Lisa's parents. Their brazen attitude must have significantly influenced her personality. I don't know about their lifestyle, but they seem to regard Lisa's word as law. With the crowd on his side, Jack got carried away, saying, "Giving my elderly mom a purpose with a lively family to care for, that's filial piety, right?" laughing loudly. I couldn't help but think Jack and Lisa are trying to impose a debt of gratitude on me, overlooking all that I've done for them in the past. I'm frustrated that they seem to have forgotten about the expenses I've covered for the grandchildren, using my money freely for whatever the daughter wants or the son needs. And Lisa's parents keep saying whatever Lisa says goes. "Hey, Mary, our Lisa is a smart girl. Let's just go along with what she says," they say with a too bright smile, which has started to creep me out a bit. That's why I've kept my distance from Lisa's parents. Their audacity to come into my life so boldly, after not seeing them since the wedding, surpasses rudeness and borders on brazenness. Lisa's parents seem quite bold, I must say. "My dear mother, with us here and deciding to live together, you'll be happier. Starting today, we're moving into this house," my son said, smirking. Then he continued, "I'll be taking your room, so you can sleep in the hallway from tonight." "Haga," my son said, disregarding me. And Lisa, with a thin smile, chimed in, "Mary, please take good care of us." I didn't want to be manipulated by my son's family or Lisa's parents any longer. Thinking this, I pushed past them and went back to my room on the second floor. A few minutes later, I came down with my carry-on, to the wide-eyed surprise of my son, his wife, and Lisa's parents. I said, "I'm leaving, so enjoy the profitable form," leaving them stunned. My son was speechless. "What?" Jack asked, "What about the housework here?" And Lisa also panicked. "Exactly, I thought I was finally going to be free from housework." Hearing that, I realized they intended to treat me like a maid. I was speechless at the audacity of Jack. Unemployed and unable to cover his family's expenses, and Lisa, whose part-time job wasn't enough. Along with her parents tagging along as an inconvenient attachment. It was clear I couldn't possibly take care of them all. I told my son and his wife, "Managing this house has become too difficult for me alone, so it's already been sold. You're welcome to live here if you wish, but you'll need to buy the house back." The couple seemed not to understand what I meant. I continued, "I had planned to move out, and I've been preparing for the last 3 months. My son retorted, "But this guest room is fully furnished, isn't it? Everything here was meant to be disposed of at the end. Most things in this house were unnecessary for my new place. I was going to throw away what I didn't need. What I did need, I've already taken to my new place," I explained. "If you and Jack want to live here, you'll have to buy the house back. Though I've kept it nice and it's close to the station, it won't be cheap." There were only a low table and some simple decor in the guest room, which my son hadn't noticed at all. The furniture in this guest room was supposed to be the last to go, to be picked up by the movers after I finished clearing out everything else. That's why there were still things for hosting in here. Then Jack and Lisa appealed to me further, saying, "Mom, I'm your important son, right? And the kids, they're your adorable grandchildren, aren't they?" I couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter. To Jack, I said, "My dear sons disappeared 3 years ago. Why come to me now? Why not go back to your original home? I owe no duty to care for a 44-year-old adult son now." Hearing this, my son said, "We've already terminated our apartment lease. Without a job, I can't pay rent, and Lisa's income isn't enough. We have no choice but to rely on you, Mom." But even so, I have no obligation to support my son's family and Lisa's parents. I retorted to my son's words. "What are you talking about? It'd be fine if you found a job, and if Lisa continues her full-time part, you'd manage. Don't make excuses for being unemployed. Just go find a job. The main breadwinner is you, Jack. My parenting days are over. I have no obligation to support Jack now." My son retorted, "I'm asking because I can find a job right away," getting angry. "Then you should ask Lisa's parents. They're good listeners for Lisa, and it'd be easier for you to live with them," I suggested. Lisa said, "Even my parents sold their house to come here. This is the only place we have to go." I told them, "This house isn't mine anymore. If you want it, you'll have to go through a real estate agent to buy it." Watching them and the children, I realized they truly had nowhere to go. It seems my son and his wife have no home to return to. However, this place is not a home for Jack to return to either. I'm just appalled at my son and his wife. The fact that they truly thought they could live with me without my consent is astonishing. It's one thing for my son and his wife, but for Lisa's parents to also assume they could just move into my house is beyond brazen. And then, Lisa's parents had the nerve to say, "As a parent, surely you should be taking care of your son, daughter-in-law, and grandchildren." How shameless can Lisa's parents get? Just because you say that doesn't mean I'm obliged to take care of you too. And if you're such concerned parents, why don't you take care of your daughter and grandchildren? Besides, Jack and I cut ties 3 years ago. I consider my son as good as dead. So, I'm really not in a position to help now. The house has been sold, and my next place is a small studio. There's no room for you, I said with a mix of sarcasm and disdain. My generosity doesn't extend to supporting a son and his wife from whom I've severed ties. Without a house of my own, there's little I can do. And being on a pension, there's nothing left I can do for Jack and his family. I'm already overwhelmed with my own retirement. Certainly, the house I've lived in for many years holds countless memories with my husband. Even though it was a time when the economy was better, how hard my husband worked to buy this house. Not just with my husband, but also the precious memories of living with Jack. Now, those memories are so nostalgic they bring tears to my eyes. Is it irresponsible as a parent to disown an only son we cherished and raised together? But Jack is now over 40, a married man with 3 children of his own. If there still lies a responsibility on a parent, perhaps my parenting was at fault. While my heart aches heavily, Jack and his family are blaming each other. It seems nobody ever considered the possibility that I might sell this house. Certainly, it's risky for someone over 70, with the mortgage paid off, to sell their home. Honestly, if my relationship with Jack and his family hadn't soured, I would never have done it. Lisa, her parents, and everyone seemed to have forgotten about me and furiously blamed Jack. "Jack, you lied to us," Lisa raged. "You said Mom would never sell the house filled with your dad's memories. Didn't you think to check? Our whole plan is ruined now." Actually, the landlord of the apartment where my son's family lived was a very good friend of mine from way back. After Jack suggested moving in together 3 months ago, I became concerned and decided to call my friend. What I heard from my friend was shocking. "Actually, your son has been discussing giving up the apartment for the last 4 months." Frankly, I was shocked by my son's behavior, but I felt relieved to have known about their plans beforehand. I also found out that they had told my friend, their landlord, "We want to live with Jack's mom and have her help a bit with the kids. We want to take care of her while she's still healthy, as a way to show our appreciation." Knowing this, I started thinking about and preparing various plans to avoid living with my sons. At 75, there's no way I can take care of endlessly energetic children. And it's obvious that when my sons and their spouses come over, they would dump household chores on me. Not only that, I felt alarmed at the thought of being exploited for my entire savings under the guise of living together, essentially becoming a walking wallet for them. I spent about a week pondering what kind of environment would be comfortable for me. At 75, considering my physical health, I wondered if I could live happily. Living alone in this house isn't an option. It's simply too large to manage. Even now, I'm struggling to manage everything. After much thought, I decided to sell this place and move into a senior living community. Senior living isn't as spacious as a single-family home, so I moved out only what I needed. Getting rid of things that wouldn't fit into the senior living was easy for me, thanks to my wide social circle. I sold items and furniture that wouldn't fit in my new apartment, as well as kimonos and antiques. The many books left by my late husband were also taken by a used bookstore. Items I hadn't used in years, and things that could be used for a charity bazaar at my volunteer place were all donated. I went to the municipal office to get paperwork done for the move and received information on what was necessary. I proceeded with each task, and almost all the moving preparations and procedures were completed 4 days ago. After finishing up the utilities arrangements, I was in my deeply memorable house for one of the last times. It was during my final farewell to the house, enjoying the remnants of my sewing hobby, that my son came over just as I was about to leave. As I was about to leave, my grandchildren, who have been playing upstairs, seemed to have overheard our conversation and peeked their faces out. Prompted by a glance from my son and his wife, my 14-year-old grandchild accused me, leaving us as heartless, Grandma. He continued, "A poor, lonely grandma like you should live with us, and you should leave all your wealth to my dad and mom." Hearing this, my 10-year-old and 7-year-old grandchildren echoed, "Yeah, that's right." These remarks clearly reflected the education they received from their parents. Their statements, heavily influenced by Jack and Lisa, were directed at me. I sometimes wonder where I went wrong with my son's upbringing. However, the paths chosen by Jack and Lisa are ultimately the ones they've chosen for themselves. However, seeing how my grandchildren behave, I realize they might face hardships in the future, but there's nothing I can do about it, nor is it my concern. I suggested to them, "You could ask Lisa's parents for help, there's no need for it to be me." My son replied, "Lisa's parents don't have any savings, and they're barely getting by on their pensions, so it's not possible. Having us around would make your life more enjoyable, Mom." I was so appalled, all I could do was sigh. "Jack, you're an adult. Find a job while Lisa is working part-time. If Lisa can work, you should be able to rent an apartment under her name. The landlord of the apartment you used to live in has kept it vacant for now, as a favor to me since we're not living together. If Lisa's part-time income and unemployed Jack can secure a home loan, then go ahead and buy the house back," I said. After leaving the house, I contacted a real estate agent. I'm getting on in years and think it would be best if I could live a life that's within my means. Later on, it seemed like my son and his family tried to buy back the house I sold. Jack, it appears, went to a real estate agency with the intention of repurchasing the house full of memories for him. He went to the real estate agency with his former family home's address, saying, "I want to buy this property." Since it's a significant purchase, there's a loan approval process. Apparently, the loan application didn't pass with just Lisa's part-time income, which was expected. With an unemployed son, they couldn't even start a conversation about a loan. The house, being in good condition and well located, was too expensive to buy back within Jack's budget, and they couldn't secure a loan due to going over budget. Indeed, for an unemployed son and a part-time working wife, the house was too costly. They ended up pleading with the landlord of the apartment they used to live in, deciding to live there with 7 people, including Lisa's parents. The landlord was surprised to have not only the couple and their children but also Lisa's parents living together. Being my friend, they mentioned, as a landlord, "It's good to have the income secured, but I hope they don't cause any problems. Neighborhood troubles are the most bothersome." Despite living in the apartment out of the landlord's kindness, it's cramped for 7 people, and with young children around, it seems like a stressful environment. Moreover, living in a tight space with Lisa's parents is adding to the stress, making their daily lives more irritable, I've heard. An acquaintance living near Jack's apartment told me that Jack and Lisa seem to be getting more worn out by the day. Jack found a full-time job, but with no qualifications. I hear it pays poorly. With the money from selling the house, my late husband's savings, and my monthly pension, I can afford to live in a reasonably good senior-oriented apartment. I'm enjoying my days with hobbies like sewing, volunteering, and dining with friends. My environment hasn't changed much, and I'm living peacefully, feeling happy. Since moving to the senior apartment, I was invited to join a lawn bowling club, and I'm having a more enjoyable time than before. Having joined the lawn bowling club, I've made more friends and am enjoying my days. Moreover, having made a good male friend has added zest to my life, making every day feel fresh. I'm not considering marriage at this point, but being able to help someone has brought me joyful moments. I feel happy spending enjoyable times with a good person. I hope to continue living healthily and happily just like now.